Have you ever wondered what would happen if a flood from Halo hop, skipped, and jumped over to a new universe? Today I'm going to see what happens if a flood jumps over to the DC universe, and we're going to talk about it. Firstly, I want to set up the scenario. The scenario is a lot like Deceased. Somehow, a flood infection form just gets teleported into a DC universe. One Earth, one random Earth, and it just is there. No hesitation, no planning, no preparation. It's just there, and that's the scenario. It's going to take over the Earth, and they have no time to stop it. I think what saves the DC universe are two things. Heroes that have tech, because of the flood's aversion to tech in humans, or tech in biomass, and magic. I don't think that the flood is going to be adept at taking over magical beings. But, that being said, I think the flood is going to be extremely dangerous when it takes over Kryptonians or any other strong aliens that don't have a defense for being infected by the flood. I think if a flood-infected Kryptonian happens, just like in Deceased, it's almost game over for the planet. So that being said, I think that straight off the bat, the smartest people on the Earth are probably going to figure out what's going on pretty quickly, but Batman and your typical Bat family members, I don't have all of them on here, they're dead. They're going to die. They're not going to survive this very long. They're going to get overrun, and they're basically going to maybe give a solution early on, just like Deceased, but there's not going to be a whole lot of help from them. Unless you can put a couple of them in some power suits, like some Mjolnir armor, or like the Hellbat armor, and keep them in there for as long as possible, they are not going to be much help. And otherwise, out of the suit, they are completely vulnerable, just like any other human being. Superman. So he could probably survive for a while, but that being said, I think he is extremely susceptible to being infected by the flood. And I think a flood-infected Superman would probably destroy the Earth. I think that would be the key to just completely annihilating the entire galaxy, honestly. If you had a flood-infected Kryptonian, that would take over the entire galaxy very, very quickly. So if Superman can find a way to stop himself from being infected, that would be a big win, but honestly, it's probably not going to help. Wonder Woman, again, she may have some sort of magical ability to stop herself from being infected, but honestly, I think she's probably also going to fall pretty quickly. Now, Cyborg. I don't think he has enough biomass to be infected. I also think he definitely doesn't have enough biomass to be infected at all. That's not what this category is for. This category is for people who are going to be dead as heck, but just not be infected. They're just going to die. They're going to be ripped apart by the flood. But he's going to survive. I think the Cyborg is going to be like the number one guy to just like straight up survive. Editing Dino here. What I actually meant to say here is that the tech inside Cyborg is more equivalent to a Spartan's augmentations in the way that they stop them from being infected by the flood. They make them immune to the flood. I think it's basically an equivalent thing there. The Cyborg is immune from being infected by the flood because of all the augmentations that he has. I don't know how this is going to work. I've mulled this over in my head a couple times while I've had Martian Manhunter on this list. I don't think that he would be infected because of his shape-shifting ability. I think it's the same thing with like Deceased. I don't think that he would be able to be infected, and if he had some sort of infection, it would just not, like, it wouldn't attach itself to his nervous system like the way that a flood infection would. I don't think it would be possible. So I think he's a survivor. I don't think he would be able to even be infected by the flood. Hawkgirl, no, she's dead. I don't think there's genuinely anything that she could do better than Superman, and I think she's weaker than Superman. I think she's just gonna die. Now, this is also something that I think would be helpful, is the Green Lanterns. As long as they can keep themselves suited up, ring on the entire time, and charged up, they are also going to be the number one contender for keeping the planet safe. You can even cordon off the planet. You can keep the entire planet sealed off from spreading the infection, because if a powered being with flight gets infected and they spread off into the universe, that's also really, really bad. So I think Green Lanterns are going to be key to keeping this infection in check. Blue Beetle, great person. He's basically a Spartan at that point. I mean, he's going to be your guy to basically beating back this infection if you're not doing, like, you know, orbital strikes. If you're on a ground battle and you want to fight these guys, like, you know, on the floor, like, that's going to be your number one guy is Blue Beetle, along with, you know, Cyborg. Raven, you know, I think the magical thing is also there. I don't think the Flood really has an advantage when fighting magical people, and I think magical people have too many things to, like, help them from not being infected. You know, I think that there's way too many magical advantages. I think there would definitely be too many ways to, like, keep yourself from being infected if you're a magical being, like Constantine, Raven, lump all those guys in there. I think that this is Zatanna, you know, I think they're all basically on the same level of not being infected. Firestorm, and I thought about Firestorm for a little bit too, because is his body even, like, physical? Like, does he have a physical form, or is it all just within the Firestorm matrix? I'm unsure. I'm gonna put him in could survive. If his physical body has a nervous system, maybe. But if he's not even a physical body, I think he's probably easily in survives. Shazam, again, I think he's basically, I don't even think he could probably be infected. He's probably just about as much as Wonder Woman, but I think he has more magical ability. Mr. Terrific, he could definitely come up with something to keep himself from getting infected. Be very easily stopped from being infected himself. Metamorpho, I really don't think that he's going to stop himself from being infected. I don't think that his ability to transform himself stops him from being infected. Like, I don't think that, like, I know that Martian Manhunter's does, but I think the way that his works is different. I think he's more human, so I think that kind of makes him more likely to die, you know? Editing Dino here once again. I thought about the Martian Manhunter and Metamorpho question once again, and I do think, while I don't know what the answer to Martian Manhunter is, whether he would be infected or not, he might be able to stop himself from being infected. I do think that the change I would make on this list is I don't think Metamorpho would be infected at all, based on I think he could change his entire body to an element that would not be biomass. And I didn't think about that in the moment. I think that he could just stop himself from being infected by completely changing his body to an element that's not a biomass base element. So, like, he'd just be rock the entire time. They wouldn't be able to infect him. And I think that is probably how he would get around that if they figured out that part of the equation to the Flood. Booster Gold, he has more tech based, and I think that maybe he might be able to, I don't know enough about Booster Gold really, but if he has access to a lot of future technology, I think that he might be able to pull something out of his hat to, you know, protect himself like you know, like what we see in the Halo universe, to protect himself from getting infected in a Spartan suit, to, you know, like power armor or whatever you would call it. So I'm gonna put him, oh god, yeah, probably survive, but, you know, could survive. John Kent, you know, same thing. If Superman goes down, so does he. You know, same thing. Or one survives, the other doesn't. Green Arrow, dead as a doornail. He's not happening. Now, speedsters. Does the speedsters speed healing / speed force integration into their nervous system fight off a Flood infection? I say yes. I say yes, it does. I think that the Speed Force is more powerful than the Flood. I don't think the Speed Force obviously is more powerful than the Anti-Life infection, because it's obviously the Anti-Life is more powerful than the Speed Force. But I don't think the Flood is on that level, and I think the Speed Force could fight off the Flood. I think it could. I really do. So I think that maybe, like, all speedsters connected to the Speed Force would also be a #1 contender for keeping the Earth safe. And honestly, if Barry and Wally are, you know, fast enough, maybe they could eradicate, if they had like an armored suit, or if they had like some sort of, like, you know, power enhancement, they could wipe out a Flood infection extremely quickly. You know, like an infestation in a security, like in a certain area, they could wipe it out extremely quickly. Dr. Fate, you know, he's not getting touched. Another Green Lantern, obviously he's not getting touched. Aquaman, this is another one. Is their biology so different from humans? But it's just like an alien thing, you know, all the aliens in in Halo get infected just like humans do. They have the same amount of biomass, so I think they also probably get infected at the same rate as humans and or Kryptonians. So I'll put him there. Now these two I put on here for fun. I think I think the engineer is still human enough. She dies, but she doesn't get infected. I think she just dies. You know, like she's just straight up dead. She gets ripped apart or whatever. Like she can't get infected. I don't think there's enough human left in her to actually be like brought back to life. And then everyone's favorite GI robot, he's just getting ripped apart. He's gonna die. And I thought those are fun just because everybody loves those two characters now because of Creature Commandos and Superman. So yeah, that is honestly the scenario that I'm thinking. I don't know, maybe someone writes some fan fiction about it. You know, one flood infection form in the DC universe. Do they wipe out? Does it wipe out the entire planet? Does it take over? Honestly, I think the DC universe has a pretty high chance of wiping out a flood infection form. They don't even have really a chance to make a grave mind. I don't think that they have really much of a problem with it. The only thing think they have a problem with is the lack of knowledge. With the flood. They don't know what it is. It's going to take them longer to find out what the flood is, how it works, the nervous system thing, how it takes over someone's body. Can they get enough samples? Can they get enough infected people to like come in and or to capture a live sample and try and get it understood to make it work? I think it'd be fun. I think it'd be fun to maybe write a scenario or a script to see what would happen, or even just like an off-brand version of the flood for like a fan comic or something. Also, do they end up using like mass extinction event? Do they end up destroying continents? Do they end up using weapons of mass destruction to cut off entire continents like they do in Halo 3? Do they end up glassing Africa? Glassing half of Africa? I don't know. What do they end up doing in the DC universe? Do they do things differently? Do they handle it better than we did in Halo? I think the DC universe power scales a little differently than Halo, and I think that they probably handle it a lot better. I think that they handle things probably efficiently and at a better rate than Halo did. I think they have a lot more powerful things to deal with an infection like Halo, and that's why the anti-life infection in Deceased is so much more like stronger and so fast spreading and has to be so aggressive, is because the infection of like regular zombies probably would just get wiped out by the DC heroes like pretty quickly. To make an infection story with DC heroes or even like Marvel heroes, the Marvel zombie story has to be, you have to change it because the solution is the heroes, and if you don't make it aggressive, like so aggressive, you're just gonna solve it in like a day. But so you have to make it a whole new threat level, and I think that's why it's interesting. So as interesting as this story is, I think that the flood doesn't scale correctly with the DC universe unless you like amplify it. Like, what if you combine the flood and the anti-life equation, and then now you're really talking about something. Anyway, that's my thoughts on this. I thought it'd be a fun video to talk about, and maybe we'll do some more combination videos in the future. Like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more videos.